Welcome to the Well podcast. We're so excited to have you today. Today, me and Claudia are going to be talking about trauma's effect on the body. I want to really maybe talk a little bit about how EMDR kind of incorporates the body into treatment, because that's a real limitation with talk therapy, is that the body is not integrated into the treatment typically. So if you kind of talk a little about that.
Yeah, so even just like the difference with talk therapy and EMDR, right? With talk therapy, I'm like, tell me everything, I want to hear you out. With EMDR, it's more about let's activate the whole body as one, right? So the holistic view of treating someone. So we're going to want to look at images that you get, feelings that you get in your body, like physical ones, smells that you remember. I mean, smells have such a great way of bringing us back to memories. You know, like when we think about Christmas, or when I think about Christmas, I think about my mom cooking tamales. Like the smell comes and it brings joy, right? But in the same way, it could be, you know, if I smell, this is not as scary or sad,
it's a safe
but like
place.
It's a safe place, right? Yeah. When I see dog poop, I'm reminded of when
I'm safe. Okay, go on.
when I see dog poop, I'm reminded of a time when I went to work with my dad. He's a gardener, and I laid down on the grass like to take a break, and I get up and I end up with highlights on my hair, free highlights.
Oh my god!
I had my head rested on poop. So our whole body, it captures a lot. Right?
Yes.
It records a lot for us. There's a book called The Body Keeps the Score, which is all about trauma. And EMDR is really good at focusing on that, right? So we're looking at, like I said, what you remember seeing, any visuals, what you smell, what you heard, what you're feeling in your body. And so we're not really doing a lot of the talking in EMDR. It's more just, let's focus on those things. What's coming up for you? Let's go with that. Let's trust that it's going to follow us to the core of the memory that you're really struggling with. But yeah, and then the other part, which is the bilateral stimulation part, which is either like you follow my hand, or we have buzzards, right? That buzz you left and right. There's many different ways to do it. The one that I choose to do is the butterfly tapping, right? So it's left and right. And what this does is it's activating your nervous system.
Okay.
Right? And so part of when we're asleep is we want to feel rested, right? Yes. If you're feeling stressed, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you have a long list of to-dos, you're not going to fall asleep easily, right? You're tossing and turning. Part of being able to sleep is that your body is finally at rest. So similarly with trauma, you don't want to reprocess it in an unsafe place, right? Because you experience trauma in an unsafe place. So the goal is to be able to activate your nervous system by doing the left and right, and it causes you to feel a little bit more relaxed. You can bring up that situation, and you're processing it in a safe environment.
I love that. There's something like, it reminds me of rocking, or like meditative, a little bit about that. Like, that could be kind of like self-soothing in a way. Yeah,
and there's, you know, when we talk about what bilateral stimulation is and what it does to you, like there's so many ways that you can do it. I mean, tapping your legs left and right, being able to listen to, there's specific music that is very left, right. You can even do it with that. And it can also be used as a coping skill, like on a daily basis. Something that we all have to do is clean, right? What is cleaning? It's left, right, brooming, left, right.
I do feel so much better when I'm cleaning.
Yes. So that's part of why sometimes when you clean, it becomes more mindful, right? You're not going on about your list of what you need to do or what you're stressed about.
About the dishes.
The dishes, left, right. So that's part of using the whole body with EMDR.
That's amazing. And it just reminds me of, I guess, the time, you know, it's not traditional talk therapy. And I guess in my clinical experience, my first patient was play therapy.
Oh, okay.
And so it was all about kind of movement, interpreting movement, interpreting play. My first patient ever, though, was selectively mute, which means there was no talking.
Yeah.
And I was like, God, why can't my first one have words? You know what I'm saying? Because I was like, you know, practicing in class, like attentive listening skills and reflecting back. And this little girl came to me and she was selectively mute. And her presentation was somatic. Like, she came in with stomach aches and not eating and a lot of like body symptoms. And I was like, well, how am I going to treat, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, here you go. And I'm so glad I got that, because I got to learn how to read movement and interpret play. And she spoke to me without words.
Yeah.
And I remember she would, for a long time, wouldn't let me play with her. She would play and I would play over here. And then another time she kind of invited me to come play with her. And then after 6 months, she broke the silence and says, no one will ever play with me at my house because they think I'm the reason why mommy's sick. And what happened was, when she was in her mother's womb, the mom became very, very sick and got health problems, and the family thought she was a bad omen and kind of didn't, like, treat her like she was not, like, her existence was made mother sick. Yeah. So she made herself quiet and kind of
diminished herself.
Yes.
Wow.
And she reenacted, embodied that in the room with me. And I think the play therapy helped her feel safe enough in order to begin the talk therapy. So that was just a way that I feel like I've seen that trauma. It was actually a family generational trauma that maybe even the mom experienced in the womb, and then it got acted out within the daughter. But she carried that in her body.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, when you're with someone and they're relaxed, they're enjoying themselves, you can tell by the body language, right?
Yes.
They're relaxed, their shoulders aren't up here. This has stressed me, right? This has relaxed me. In the same way, when we enter into a room and we feel intimidated by someone, right? We don't necessarily go up to them and, hi, I'm Claudia, nice to meet you. We usually avoid them, right? We're going to walk around the other way. There's things that we do unconsciously to keep ourselves safe, right? And whether if that's from embarrassment, whether if that's from trauma or danger, we want to keep ourselves safe. So before we can consciously say, oh, I'm going to go do this because I feel safer going this way, or before we can really formulate that, our body is the one that's like, hold up, wait a minute, right? Which, like, that brings in discernment, right? The Holy Spirit really telling us, like, hey, like, something's not right here. So really being able to, like, bring it all together is just so important, because I think there's more that we're trying to say that we can't fully express with words yet, and that's where EMDR is really, really helpful.
Yes, I think that's really amazing that the body will know before the mind even picks it up. That there's these cues you get instinctually that something's not right. And sometimes I think we try to numb that out or say, oh, I have the problem. But or people come to me like, I have an anxiety disorder, help me not be anxious. And I'll be like, well, what's going on in your environment? Maybe you should be anxious with dating that guy. Maybe that neighbor that you feel weird about, like, maybe you shouldn't go by him because he's actually dangerous, and your body is telling you, like, to be safe. But hyperarousal, I think, is something different. Is when you have experienced trauma, it's like your body's always prepared for fight or flight. And that's, I think, when they can't relax. And bringing that into the room in therapy also can heal the body. Because sometimes people will have, like, more peace in their mind, but their body is still aroused. And that comes, that can cause, like, sexual dysfunction or even social isolation. Because maybe they isolate because the only time that, there's no triggers.
Yeah, and that reminds me of, I don't really know if this is something that your office talks about, right? But, like, when we help women, what's really important is also to see them as a whole person, right? And if they're getting ready to go into marriage, there's a lot of within our culture that is, sex is bad until marriage, right? And when you have that instilled in you, your body knows this is not good, this is not okay. But then when you get married, let's say honeymoon night, you can't just flip the switch and
Yeah.
sex is good, right? So even
Yes.
your own body records that, and there's a problem that comes up where your muscles are so tight and so tense that you can't relax and you can't enjoy what the Lord has gifted us in marriage.
Wow. Yeah.
So even unlocking some of that trauma from what we've been hearing and knowing that the Lord is good and he's created something beautiful for us, but also knowing that some of the messages that we receive, and our body will take it in and will say, okay, I'm closing this out of my life forever until I get married, right?
Yes.
But for your body to make that quick switch is really difficult. So yeah, there's a lot of even pain with what we're hearing, messages we hear, but also even if you have experienced a traumatic experience when it comes to your body, like it's gonna hold it in until you are able to really talk through it and receive that support.
And I think a lot of people that have eating disorders have a very sometimes dissociative, which means like they don't feel attached to the body. They override signals, you know, hunger signals or extra, like being tired, they'll over exercise. And then so yes, like in their sexuality, they have a hard time connecting back to the body. And I think part of the work is you connecting to your body's voice.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh no, like let it talk. Because maybe if your body's been shut up or abused, it stops, the voice stops. So I think that's like one of the great work is kind of like relearning how your body talks to you. It doesn't mean that like if you know your body wants a cookie every night, you give it to that, but maybe like you can notice like, oh, I'm craving something sweet, maybe I need some soothing or some sugar, you know. Maybe that means something though. Maybe you don't give into it all the time, but you just can be like, okay, that like it's allowed to tell me like what it wants,
right?
You know?
Yeah, because there could be more than just the cookie that you want.
No,
right?
It could be something else. Yeah,
maybe it's connected to a memory, like we were saying earlier, right? Like maybe you have a great memory of your grandma who used to make cookies for you, right? And it's a day where you're feeling really lonely, or you've had a hard day at work, and you want someone to comfort you, and you're like, gosh, I really want a cookie. Yeah. But is it just because you want a cookie, or is it because you're really in need of comfort, right? So we have those like initial needs, and then it's like, but I could also reach out to a friend. I can also connect with someone and get more support.
Get some verbal sweetness.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's our episode today. Our next episode is going to be about how trauma impacts our relationships and how relationships can actually bring in healing. So stay tuned. We're excited to see you. Thank you.